Well, welcome back to Donington Park, everybody. Our second race of the day for the Porsche Club Championship. A Porsche AM Championship will very shortly be heading to the circuit. We saw a brilliant race earlier on today, which saw retirement whilst leading for Jake McAleer. I think he clouted the tyre barriers as he was coming through the Fogarty S's, and that caused damage to his car. They got him back out, but he was several laps adrift, which meant that Ed Hayes claimed the win. He wasn't the only McAleer to have problems, though, because his father, it was radiator damage. I thought at the time I saw water coming out of the front of the car, and it was radiator damage following contact that brought about his retirement as well. It's still breezy, it's still gusty, but it has remained fine all day here at Donington Park. But the temperatures, which climbed to a dizzy height of 11 degrees earlier, have now dropped back down to 9 degrees. So with the wind chill, it isn't half chilly out there. Now, this grid, it's nothing to do with the results from race number one. This is based on their second fastest times that they set in the qualifying session much earlier on this morning. The cars making their way out on circuit, so let's guide you through the grid. Jake McAleer starts from pole once more, and the race one winner, Ed Hayes, lies alongside. Jim Bryan has got Oliver Chatham for company on row number 2. Great recovery drive from him in race 1. Saw him climb back through the order after problems at turn 1. Pete Morris has got the busy man from race number 1, Richard Baston, for company. And Steve Wood, who finished on the podium earlier on today, is joined by Pete Evans on row number 4. The fifth row of the grid sees Mark McAleer line up alongside Richard Marston. And it's Paul Simpson and Chris Dyer, the former champion, that line up on row number 6. Row 7 is where we see the first of the AM Class cars. Kyle Wells, who was the AM Class winner earlier on, has got Barrington Darcy, another AM Class car, for company. And then we go back to the main club championship on the next row, which sees Julian Morris line up alongside Luke Kelly, having his second ever race following his first earlier on today. The next row of the grid, row number 9, is back to the AM Championship. Number 20, Faye Noble-Evans and Charlie Dye, who completed the AM Class podium earlier on today. And row number 10, it's car number 88, which is Andreas Giorgio, who lines up alongside Steve Williams. The final row of the grid, which is row number 11, sees Paul Seagrave line up alongside Brian Richardson. That's the way that they line up. All of the Class 1 cars have got yellow windscreen headers. Class 1 catering for the 997 Carrera 2, or whether it be the Dot 2 or the Dot 2.1 version, 996s and Caymans as well, whether it be the 342 or the 341 model. And Class 2, now known as the AM Championship, they've all got black windscreen headers. That caters exclusively for the Boxsters. So whether it be the 3.2 or the 3.4 model, whether it be the 986 or the 987 variant. Now, the cars all run on Pirelli slick tyres. Those cars that are in the main club championship are limited to a maximum of 1 set of tyres for every race meeting. So in other words, they've qualified on them and they raced on them earlier on today. They'll still be having the same tyres on. Those in Class 2, well, they all started this weekend with brand new sets of tyres. They have to see them through this weekend and through the next weekend. They only get a brand new set of Pirelli slicks at every second race meeting. So you do need to look after your tyres in this championship. It all helps costs, make the championship as cost effective as possible by restricting the amount of tyres that you can bolt onto the cars. Final couple of cars just coming into position. There's Brian Richardson, who starts in his Porsche Centre High Wycombe car off the tail end of the field in the familiar white and red, but less black, of Rint, who I've got cars out in this, and in the Boxster Cup race that we've got coming up for you later on. That was scheduled to be taking place about 6, but we're running slightly behind time here at Donington Park because of some problems throughout the course of the day. So this 25-minute race, it's just completed its formation lap. The last couple of rows just coming into position now. You can see the Dayglow car of Charlie Dye coming into position. Brian Richardson comes into position, and I think that is pretty much everybody where they should be. So Jake McAleer on pole position will be hoping for a better run this time than he had in race number 1, where he caused damage of his own making. He said it was driver error. He starts from the black car with the purple and the blue to it on the left-hand side of your screens. Alongside him is Ed Hayes. Red lights on the gantry, and as they flash their way out now, Jake Hayes gets a good launch. It's another good start from Jim Bryan from the second row of the grid, who might have his nose ahead by the time they head up towards Redgate Corner, but he's on the outside line. Is he going to beat Jake McAleer? Yes, he does. Jim Bryan is going to lead the way up towards Redgate Corner for the first time. This was where Oliver Chatham went wide in the first race. He's wise to that in race number 2 and keeps the white and the green Cayman within the circuit limits. It's a bit of jostling further back, but it's going to be Ed Hayes that leads from Jake McAleer in second place as they head down towards the old hairpin for the first time. Onto the brakes through the right-hander. It is Jim Bryan that leads from Jake McAleer in second position. The AM Class cars just working their way through the old hairpin for the first time. Oliver Chatham sitting there in third place at this stage. as they turn their way through what is McLean's corner. So Ed Hayes looking to see if he can do anything about grabbing the lead of the race, as he did earlier on. Jim Bryan, I should say, that leads the way as they turn their way through Coppice for the first time, and Jim Bryan under pressure from Jake McAleer. Jake looking one way, looking the other. There isn't a Porsche-sized gap at this stage, so Jim Bryan still leading the way from Jake McAleer. Pete Morris is up into 4th place. Ed Hayes, the race 1 winner, is down into 5th at the moment and has got Richard Baiston right behind him as they turn their way through the Fogarty S's for the first time. Jim Baiston is a bit quicker coming out of the Fogarty S's and might gobble up Ed Hayes. I think Steve Wood was ready to pounce as well, so the top 4 as they were, Ed Hayes, Jim Baiston and Steve Wood all still together as they turn their way out of the Melbourne hairpin for the first time. But it is Jim Bryant who is going to lead in the 997 surely at the end of the first lap. As long as he gets Goddard's right, he will be the race leader at the end of the first lap, and we'll pick up on who's leading Am. It was earlier on Kyle Wells, and it is still Kyle Wells in the white car with the with the Dayglow yellow mirrors that is the leader, the early leader of what will be the Am class. But he's got Barrington Darcy, by the look of things, right behind him as they head up towards Redgate Corner to start the second lap of the race. Jim Baiston being attacked by Edward Hayes, who's trying to squeeze his way through. Can Ed make the car stick? Well, they're still side by side down through the Craner curves. The Cayman should have its nose ahead of the 997 when they get to the old hairpin, but Richard Baiston's got the inside line and Ed Hayes is pushed a little bit wide. That might compromise his exit speed, and that drops him into the clutches of Mark McAleer, who goes through. Steve Wood will try and pounce if at all he can on the run through Schwantz curve, and as they head up towards McLean's corner, Ed Hayes, is he going to gain the place? No, Mark McAleer's not able to go through, but Ed Hayes still maybe with a bit of dust on the Pirelli still, then runs a little bit wide at McLean's, and surely Mark McAleer is through. His son Jake in the meantime is now going for the lead of the race, right alongside Jim Bryant for the lead, and it is going to be Jake McAleer who now picks up the lead of the race from the fast starting Jim Bryant. But Jim is on the inside line when they go back down in towards the Fogarty S's. Is he going to lose the lead? Yes, he does. Jake McAleer picks up the lead of the race. Jim Bryan in 2nd place. Oliver Chatham there in 3rd place. So it's 997 from 997 from Cayman at this stage as they head down in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. Pete Morris in the car that won the championship in the hands of Jake McAleer last year, at the moment getting beaten by his old car, because Jake now is the lead of the race. And Ed Hayes might lose a further place here, because it now looks as though Steve Wood in the Auto Farm car is looking to try and draw himself alongside. We're expecting Steve to be out in a Cayman, but it's not finished as yet, so he's out in the 996 for this weekend. Out of Goddard's top 4 sort of breaking away a little bit. 5th place, Richard Baiston had a busy race in race number 1. Who's the cork in the bottle again? Who's the cork in the bottle? Richard Baiston. He's got Mark McAleer behind him, then Steve Wood, and then I think Ed Hayes might lose a further place here at the wheel of the Cayman. He runs out a little bit wide coming out of Redgate Corner, and that might lose him a place and will also drop him into the clutches of Chris Dyer. So yeah, looks as though Steve Wood is through. The white and the green and the blue car of Steve Wood, number 77, 996, the first of the 996s we've got in the field so far. The race leaders are already on lap number 3 at this stage, and Jim Bryant, despite the fast start, is coming under pressure from Oliver Chatham. Remember, Oliver dropped to the very tail end of the grid in the race earlier on today, fought back to finish in what was 6th place in the end, and now he could well be up into 7th place. They are side by side with each other as they head through Coppice Corner. Jim Bryant is happy to run side by side with Oliver Chatham down the exhibition straight, because he knows he'll have the inside line when they get towards the Fogarty S's. Who's going to be the bravest on the brakes? The nose is dip of the car. The 997 hangs on to 2nd place. The leading Cayman still sitting there in 3rd at the moment. Pete Morris is still shadowing away in 4th place, the multiple former champion who's been racing Porsches for a very good number of years indeed. Onto the brakes through the Melbourne hairpin. Still the top 4 in the same order as they were at this stage, accelerating their way back up the incline again in towards Goddard's. Difficult braking at Goddard's because it's an adverse camber. You brake and then the circuit drops away. It's very easy to run wide on the exit. Mark McAleer and Steve Wood going side by side in towards Goddard's. Then you've got the car right behind them, which is going to be Ed Hayes, who has dropped way down through the order, considering he started on the front row of the grid. He's now down into something like 8th position and is still looking as though he has got not that far behind him the next of the cars, which is going to be Chris Dyer. And then after Chris Dyer, it will be Kyle Wells, who still continues to lead the AM category at this stage, and a bit like race 1 has got a substantive advantage. He's 10th. Barrington Darcy, who's second in AM, is down in 14th at the moment, and third in AM would see Andreas Georgiou, who's down in 17th. That would complete the AM podium at this stage. But for second, for third, for fourth, brilliant battle it is. Jim Bryan still hanging on to it. Oliver Chatham still trying to unlock the door as they did before. They go side by side up towards Coppice Corner. Jim braved it out around the outside last time, but Oliver Chatham is through this time. Up into second place goes Oliver Chatham. So he was desperate to try and work his way back through the order in race number 1. Sort of plateaued out at 7th, but grabbed 6th because of a poor final lap from Chris Dyer. So he's now up into 2nd. Jim Bryan's down to 3rd, but the pressure doesn't stop there, I'm afraid, Jim, because you look in your mirrors, multiple champion Pete Morris in the PMC construction car directly behind and looking to see if he can make a move at the wheel of this brand new car for him for this year. So this is the car that claimed the championship in the hands of Jake McAleer last year. And whose car is Jake driving? Pete Morris's, that he raced last year. Steve Wood a little bit sideways on the exit of Melbourne there, getting the power down as fast as he can. The tail end of the car just twitching around under acceleration. A little bit of opposite lock just to counteract the oversteer on the car. But Jake McAleer is away. He's just set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:41.830, leading by nearly 5 seconds after 4 laps of racing. Steve Wood in the background of the shot with his lights ablaze, coming under pressure from the Cayman of Ed Hayes, who just dips a wheel onto the grass there coming in towards Redgate Corner. Realised that he was running out of real estate and just made sure that he didn't put too much steering input whilst those left rear tyres were on the grass heading in towards Redgate Corner. So that's dropped him away very slightly, but not by much, from Steve Wood. Through the old hairpin. They will thread their way again once more. Steve Wood trying to catch up with Mark McAleer. Mark, who's been a front runner and a former champion in this category, sitting there at the wheel of the number 14 car with its black front end, its purple tail end. The only real way to tell his car apart from Jake McAleer's, because they are identically liveried, is if it's got headlamps, it's Mark's. If they're black headlamps and there's no glass in them, then that will be Jake, who continues to lead the way. Out of Coppice Corner. Richard Baston, as he did in race number 1, having to act defensively all the way through. He got picked off a few cars in race number 1, but still had a brilliant race. He would have thoroughly enjoyed it. And here he is again, absolutely in the heart of the battle. Mark McAleer, as a result, closes up onto the coattails of Richard Baston, but is a little bit slower coming out of the Fogarty S's, so that puts him under pressure from the 996 of Steve Wood, who's trying the wide line in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Is he going to try and cut back on the exit? No. Then we've got the 2 Caymans busy squabbling away. The light blue one is Ed Hayes. The red one with the black flashes to it and the white stripe down the centre is another former champion, which is Chris Dyer. They all continue to absolutely match each other for pace. Now in second place, Oliver Chatham has pulled away a bit now, so he's broken away from the car of Jim Bryan, and Jim Bryan is left just to squabble with Pete Morris. The battle for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th heads in towards Redgate Corner. Mark McAleer trying to see if he can get ever closer to the coattails of the all-grey car of Richard Baston. New car for Richard for this weekend. So it's substantively better than his old car. That's the ex-Simon Clark car that was competed in the championship the last couple of years. And here at the moment, he's still got this train of cars queuing up behind him. Mark McAleer, Steve Wood, Ed Hayes, then a slight gap before we see Chris Dyer. So it's 997, 997, 996, Cayman, and then Cayman. Through the right-hander at McLean's Corner, up towards Coppice. Mark McAleer going defensive because he knows he's under attack from Steve Wood. Steve Wood looks to his left, and what did he see? Ed Hayes trying to go right the way around the outside to pick up a place. Now the outside through Coppice would give him the inside line when they get towards the braking area for the Fogarty S's. Is Ed Hayes going to do it? Is Pete Morris going to do it? Because he is right on the coattails of Jim Bryant and attacking for second, third as well. So Jim Bryant hangs on to third. Pete Morris for the moment still sort of scratching his head a little bit and seeing where he might be able to get himself into the podium places here. And all of this squabbling behind is aiding the cause of the likes of Jake McAleer and Oliver Chatham, who still remain first and second respectively. Still leading AM is 448, which is Kyle Wells. He lost a place on that last lap, but he still leads the class because it was one of the Porsche Club Championship competitors that went through. And now, by the look of things, we've also had a change for 7th and 8th because Ed Hayes is up into 7th, down to 8th. On that lap goes Steve Wood over the start-finish line. Now is Steve going to attack back? Mark McAleer is also gearing up Richard Baston for a change of order, nips up the inside at Redgate corner, parks the car on the apex to prevent any undercut coming through from Richard Baston. So Mark McAleer up now into 5th position, down to 6th for Richard Baston. And now let's see whether Mark McAleer can, again, another driver that's looking to make amends from his problems in race number 1, where there was a little bit of contact that just affected the radiator on the car. At the time we weren't sure if it was smoke, but it did make me think, because it was a front corner and the headlamp had gone, that he'd had a bit of contact or had clocked the tyre wall. You can see a slight snatched brake there from him. Richard Baston also runs wide at McLean's, and that allows Ed Hayes up the inside, so might be a further place lost here for Richard Baston. Yep, through goes Ed Hayes, and while the door is open, Steve Wood thinks, right, I'll have a bit of this. He's now trying to carve the 997 through and past, and has he made it stick? Yes, he has. So 2 further places lost now for Richard Baston, who's dropping through the order at the moment. Was 5th at the start of the lap, and is now going to be down into something like 8th by the end of it. So 3 places lost, I'm afraid, on that lap, with still over half of the race to go at this stage. Mark McAleer looking to try and make progress. His son Jake continues to lead the race by 6.3 seconds now from Oliver Chatham, who's got 3.5 seconds in hand between himself and Jim Bryan, who's still under pressure from Pete Morris. So the race leader up towards Redgate corner. Jake, having made that mistake which pretty much put him out of contention in race number 1. The car's repaired following the off and the damage. Oliver Chatham in 2nd. Pete Morris is up into 3rd at the end of that lap, or was at least as he came over the start-finish line, which means that Jim Bryan now, in his fantastically livery blue and pink machine with the odd little light green flash on it, is going to drop down into 4th. So there's Oliver Chatham, and then in the background you can just see Pete Morris coming in towards the old hairpin, sitting there in his newly acquired 3rd position. Now the fastest lap of the race has gone to Ed Hayes. He might be down in 6th position, but a 1:41.276 for him at the moment is the fastest lap, which will come with an extra championship point. There's Pete Morris, there's Jim Bryan, but he's now getting caught by the next 2 cars, which is Mark McAleer and the man who last time through set the fastest lap of the race, Ed Hayes. So not the best first couple of laps for Ed, but he's starting to find the groove now, and is putting the former champion Mark McAleer under pressure. Mark McAleer looking to try and attack and defend at the same time. In the AM class at the meantime, we've got Charlie Dye busy fighting away. Now he'll be fighting away with Andres Giorgio, and they'll be fighting for the final spot on the AM podium at this stage. Very, very sideways, a big wiggle from Charlie Dye, who gathers it up. That puts him up to 3rd in AM. Andy Giorgio now under pressure from the next car, which is Fay Noble Evans, whilst AM is still being led by this car here, 448. Kyle Wells grabbed a win in the AM class earlier on today when he was mixing it amongst the main Porsche Club competitors, and at the moment he is not that far behind one of those, which is Julian Morris, who runs in the main Porsche Club Championship. So out of the Melbourne hairpin they go. Over the start-finish line comes Pete Morris in 3rd, Mark McAleer in 4th, Steve Wood in 5th. Is Ed Hayes going to get through into 6th place at the expense of Jim Bryan? Yes, he does. So that's 3 places lost on that lap for Jim Bryan. Just going to show that once the door is open, it's very easy for the rest of the cars then to just file their way through. So a bit like Richard Baston a few laps ago, it's not 1 place you lose, it's 3 on a single lap for Jim Baston, who had that brilliant start when the lights went out and was leading early on, but is now down into 6th position. Ed Hayes, who started on the front row of the grid at the wheel of the light blue Cayman, applying the pressure to Steve Wood, who did a part season last year. I don't think we saw Steve at every single round. He did a good chunk of the rounds, but not at every single one. Again, been racing Porsches for a good number of years. We've seen him racing Ford Mustangs, we've seen him racing Volkswagen Golfs in the past. He's doing a good job of hanging on to 5th place. Gained a couple of places on that last lap. So he's from 7th up to 5th, but chances of him gaining another place at the moment. Mark McAleer is just too far away. His focus will be more turned towards defence at this stage. So the Service Shaw back machine heads through the Fogarty S's. He raised a bit of dust on the exit, which might just compromise the exit speed a bit, but he's got enough in hand and enough experience to cover off any move that's coming from Ed Hayes at the wheel of his Par Motorsport prepared machine. And they accelerate their way up towards the braking area for Goddard into now the final 10 minutes of this 25-minute race. One car has picked up a 5-second penalty for track limits, in fact a 15-second penalty for track limits, which is going to be number 22, which is going to be, I'm afraid, Pete Evans. So over the start-finish line, Richard Baston, having lost all those places early on, remains in what will be 8th place at the moment. Chris Dyer's there in 9th place. Stuart Marsden in a dark blue car with the lighter blue and red stripes down the centre of it completes the top 10 at the moment. Those 3 cars just heading on to Hollywood and down through the Craner curves. They're close to each other, but nobody's quite close enough to fully attack as yet. Chris Dyer had a bit of an off qualifying session earlier on today, and when your fastest lap time and your second fastest lap time give you the grid, it does sort of put you on the back foot for the rest of the day. He had a good race in race number 1 before he had a problem on the final lap, which saw him drop out of contention. He did cross the finish line, and there, I'm afraid, is a car that looks as though it might be dropping out of contention. That's Brian Richardson, who seems to be looking as though he was slowing out on circuit. I think he's just letting, oh no, the green flags were waving there, so there might have been maybe an off for him down through the Fogarty S's. He's certainly slowing down in towards the old hairpin and looks as though he might possibly be destined for the pit lane at the end of this one. No obvious signs of anything wrong with the car, but it is certainly off the pace as it's heading up towards Goddard, so maybe that car is destined for the pit lane. Another car which I think did have a few problems in qualifying. Qualified off the back of the grid in both races, and yeah, just the body language of the car tells you that that's destined for the pit lane. So he carves his way into the pit lane, saves Oliver Chatham having to put a lap on him. Now Pete Morris is also looking as though he might be struggling a bit here, because Mark McAleer is putting him under pressure. So let's just have a quick look and see what they might be able to do. Pete Morris under pressure from Mark McAleer. Steve Wood's not far away. And let's just have a quick look at what happened at the S's. Brian Richardson, yeah, there was contact there, wasn't there? And that was Andreas Giorgio, by the look of things, that may have got together. Difficult to tell from that angle, the second car. But I do think that might be, possibly, the number 88 machine. So Pete Morris in third, still hanging on to it, but Mark McAleer, Steve Wood, Ed Hayes, all busy queuing up behind, whilst Brian Richardson heads in towards retirement. So 4 cars fighting over what is just 1 podium spot at this stage. If Pete Morris can hold them all up for the next 6 or so minutes, don't rule out the fact that we might have another car looking to join back in the fun as well, which is going to be the number 74 car, Jim Bryan, who is not that far away. He's a couple of seconds back from this quartet at this stage. Ed Hayes jinks out from behind the slipstream of Steve Wood, but is still not going to be close enough to try anything as they head in towards the braking area for the Fogarty S's. So Pete Morris, the most experienced Porsche racer of this quartet. That's not to say that Mark McAleer and Steve Wood haven't got plenty of racing experience. They're all very experienced drivers. Ed Hayes looking to see if he can gain a move. No, wide line in, tighter line out might work, but it's still not quite going to shuffle the order. It's still 997 from 997 from 996 from Cayman. Onto the brakes through the left-hander at Goddard's. This is lap number 11 that they are about to complete this time through. Pete Morris over the start and finish line. Has he got enough of a gap to prevent any attack on the way towards Redgate Corner? Mark McAleer will want to attack and defend at the same time. He's got Steve Wood right behind him at this stage. They still all match each other as they head out of Redgate Corner. Stuart Marsden, in the meantime, you might have just have seen that race control have given him a penalty, so he's picked up a 5-second penalty for track limits at the wheel of the number 55 car. He's running down in 10th place, but is 9 seconds ahead of the next car behind him, which is going to be Julian Morris. So he's still going to be good for 10th on corrected times. And Jim Bryan actually has just picked up a time penalty as well. He's running in 7th place. He picks up a 5-second penalty, and he's 6.5 seconds ahead of Richard Baston, so he needs to be careful. Pete Morris, Mark McAleer, Steve Wood, Ed Hayes still all together for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th position for the 12th time out of Coppice Corner. Now, has anybody got anything they can offer up this time? In towards the braking area for the Fogarty S's. You can see a black mark on the front left-hand corner of Steve Wood's car, where he's got a little bit close to the tyre stack through the Fogarty S's. Another car picking up a time penalty is car number 7, which is Ed Hayes, I'm afraid. Now, Ed, again, trying that outside line. Can't unlock the door to wiggle his way through and ahead of Steve Wood, so they still remain in the same order with 4 minutes to go at this stage. Remember, Jake McAleer still leading the way. He's now on to lap number 13. 9.5 seconds is the lead advantage between himself and Oliver Chatham. Oliver Chatham has 6.5 seconds between himself and this great battle for third, which is still being headed by Pete Morris, but Mark McAleer is under pressure for fourth, and Steve Wood looks to go round, and off and into the barriers goes Stuart Marsden, I'm afraid. So into the Recticel barriers, that will be the exit of Goddard's where he's gone off. The Recticel doing its thing and has probably caused some very light cosmetic damage to the car. And in fact, you could hardly tell that car's hit the barriers. Maybe one of the radiator ducts has lost its grill to it, but that's about it for Stuart Marsden. So he now rejoins directly ahead of the similar Martini liveried car, which is going to be Barrington Darcy. So Stuart Marsden, 5-second penalty, down to 13th place on corrected times. That'll put him down to 14th at the moment now, with just 3 minutes of the race to go. Steve Wood and Ed Hayes still rolling their sleeves up over 5th and 6th position. Looks as though Pete Morris has just pulled away a little bit from the cars that he was squabbling with. And let's just have a look. There's Stuart Marsden, just outbrakes himself going into Goddard's. Very wide indeed, bounces over the curbs, that unsettles the car and he can't get the car corrected in time. So just a light touch into the barriers, hopefully no radiator damage for him, and he'll be able to continue for the remaining 2 3/4 minutes. Now, the battle for third looks as though Pete Morris has been caught again. There's more cars picking up time penalties. Paul Seagrove picks up a penalty, the number 45 car this time, for track limits. Steve Wood, with that little bit of damage to the front corner from where he's got close to a tyre stack, will be hoping that he can push Mark McAleer hard. Mark McAleer is trying to catch Pete Morris. They're all closing up on Steve Williams, who is about to be lapped. So he'll want to try and move out of harm's way and allow these cars squabbling over the final podium position to get through. Another car picks up a time penalty, which I think is the number 19 car that said there. Now there's lots and lots and lots of fluid coming out the back of Pete Morris's car, and all does not look well for Pete Morris. He's going to go past the back marker. He's trying to, you can see the tail end of the car was wagging around as he almost spun on his own fluid there, but he gathered it up. We've got side-by-side action further back as well, as by the look of things that is going to be Ed Hayes looking to try and attack. But for Pete Morris, can he get this car to the checkered flag? Well, we'll have to wait and see. You can see fluid coming out the back of the car. Now that's going to be affecting Steve Wood behind, so they need to be careful, as does Mark McAleer and Ed Hayes, that they don't slither off on whatever's coming out the back of Pete Morris's car. He only needs to do one more lap and he'll finish on the podium. But is the car going to hang on? We'll have to wait and see. So in towards the Fogarty S's. Through they'll go. Pete Morris in third, Mark McAleer in fourth place. Ed Hayes there in fifth place now, is there? No, it's Pete Morris in fourth, Steve Wood in fifth, Mark McAleer in sixth. Ed Hayes is next up. And Ed Hayes has picked up a time penalty as well by the look of things. 5-second penalty for him. We've seen lots of those throughout today, not just in this race, but generally some of the supporting races for Porsche Club and Porsche Am Championship. I think the installation of some new sensors, talking to one of the parts of the course, they are only just off the line, so it's a very small margin. You don't need to go that wide at the S's. You trigger the sensor and it's automatically linked to race control, and that's why we're seeing so many cars picking up these new track limits warnings. Pete Morris, again, you can just see the tail end of the car still isn't quite right. Whatever it is dropping out seems to have got better, but there's still something coming out that's affecting the rear end grip on his car. Our Am class leader almost into the back of Julian Morris there, so almost got caught out there, did Kyle Wells, who won't really want to be doing battle with these cars. Remember, the yellow windscreen headers are one of the full club championship competitors. Black windscreen header will tell you that it's an Am class car. Well, Kyle will be more than just focused on winning his class. That's all you need to do. That's where the championship points come from. If he gets ahead of the car ahead of him, doesn't give him any more championship points, so don't worry about it. For Jake McAleer, though, looks as though the champion from last year is on course for his first win of the 2026 championship season. Disappointment in race number 1. He has corrected that in race number 2. Has a 9-second lead. The clock has ticked to 0, and all he needs to do is safely negotiate Goddard's He's got maybe a car up the road that might come into play, but that's Charlie Dye. He's got loads of time just to decide even whether he wants to get past that back marker or not, because he's heading into the final corner, and it looks as though round 2 of the 2026 Porsche Club Championship is going to go the way of the reigning champion. Jake McAleer comes through to claim the win from Oliver Chatham in the white car with the green stripe that will finish in second position at this stage. We'll wait and see who finishes third. It was Pete Morris that was there in third. Richard Baston has still got his hands full as he hangs on to 8th on the road from Chris Dyer, but there's cars ahead of them that have got time penalties, so that might shuffle the order. And for third, I think everybody wanted to be third. Mark McAleer claims it by 51 thousandths of a second on the run to the line. Mark McAleer from Pete Morris, and Steve Wood is only a 10th off that, so third, fourth and fifth separated by less than 0.19 of a second. Less than 2/10 as they took the checkered flag. So it's Mark McAleer that completes the podium from Pete Morris, from Steve Wood. Then it's going to be the car of Ed Hayes that crossed the line in 6th position. Thankfully for him, the car in 7th also had a time penalty, which was Jim Bryant. Chris Dyer comes through to finish in 8th place. Richard Baston in 9th and Julian Morris in 10th. The winner of AM comes through. That's going to be Kyle Wells. That makes it 2 out of 2 in the AM class. Barrington Darcy takes the checkered flag now in the silver machine with the red and the blue stripes. He'll finish 2nd in AM. 3rd in AM should go the way once more of the Dayglow car of Charlie Dye, who I think will be the last of the cars to take the checkered flag, that Dayglow yellow machine. And he completed the podium in race number 1, so it looks as though our AM podium is exactly the same as race number 1, but our main Porsche Club Championship podium has all changed. Let's just have another quick look at that fantastic squabble for third over the line. Pete Morris and Mark McAleer together, Steve Wood not that far apart, and on the run to the line, Mark McAleer just has a little bit more speed. You can see, look at the grid hatchings, he's just ahead of Pete Morris, which means that by 0.051 of a second, Mark McAleer sneaks the final podium spot in the Porsche Club Championship. He'll be pleased with that because it means that his son wins the race and grabs his first win of the year. Mark McAleer, after his disappointment in race number 1, also sets it right, and he will grab the final podium spot in the race overall. So all of the cars making their way in towards the pit lane, and then that will be their racing done for today. We've still got more Porsche racing coming up for you. That will be for the second of our Porsche Boxster Cup races. That was timetabled to be starting at 6 o'clock, but we've still got another race before that even takes place, so we'll be a little bit late with our streaming of that one. Let's confirm some results for you then. Jake McAleer claims the win from Oliver Chatham in 2nd place, and Mark McAleer is there in 3rd. Pete Morris 4th, just missing out on a podium in the end. Steve Wood not that far away either in 5th place. Ed Hayes 6th, ahead of Jim Bryant, Chris Dyer, Richard Baston, and Julian Morris in car number 10 completes the top 10. As we head outside of the top 10, Kyle Wells comes through to claim a 2nd win in the AM class from Barrington Darcy, who was 2nd in AM, finishing in 12th place overall. Next up is Pete Evans, who was 13th. 14th is Luke Kelly. 15th was Stuart Marston ahead of Paul Seagrave. And next car up in 17th place, that will be Charlie Dye, who completed the AM podium, finishing 3rd overall in AM. Andreas Giorgio was 18th, Fay Noble Evans was 19th, and Steve Williams completed the top 20. Then it's just one more car, which was Brian Richardson, who sadly retired into the pit lane. The extra point for the fastest lap in the championship goes to way of Ed Hayes, that 1:41.276. And that is our second and final race today for the Porsche Club. We still have the Boxsters coming up for you shortly, but if you want to catch some more Porsche Club racing action, you can do that when we head to Snetterton in Norfolk next time out on the 16th of May. Goodbye.